So only spiritual people are going to survive this. It's mandatory that you become a spirit.
What are they doing? Oh my gosh. Why is this grown man running around like an idiot? He may be farting dust at this point, but he's the future of the New World Order. Just watch Joe Biden run. There he goes. There he goes. Woo! Broke a sweat. Yeah, there you go. It comes off the jacket. Man, he's a young man.
The answer arrived way before the pandemic. But what is happening is the rejection of the knowledge.
Listen, the cure for your exhaustion is intimacy with Jesus. That's the cure, y'all.
With our study on the times in which we live. And we are supposed to be studying the book of Revelation, and in a way we are, but now we are going away from, the bit of what is actually explicitly said in the scripture, and kind of delving into what we are seeing right now and how it builds into the whole crescent of what is spoken about in the book of Revelation 13, which we were covering before. Remember, I told you it's about a one world government, a one world religious system, and also about a one world economic system. But to build that sort of thing, there are so many things that have to go under, a lot of structures that have to be built silently and all down there. Now today, you will excuse me, this is going to be a very academic show. Okay, here we go. Now, there's always been talk of a conspiracy that is being cooked by a certain caliber of people who are in high places, people who actually have a desire to rule the world. Now, these are the people fomenting the new world government, or the new world order, as they call it, or the one world government. It's not just a government, it's an order, and there's a way in which you enter the new world order and subscribe to the new one world government. And I'm going to tell you some of the people who tell us exactly how people enter the new world order and subscribe to this one world government and so on. But so many people, even top people in society, have been speaking about this conspiracy. Most of them speaking for it because they are involved in fomenting it, but a few of them actually speaking against it. And some of the people who stood out and were very vociferous against it suffered a lot of things. Some of them were killed, murdered, and so on. But the conspiracy has been there, and it has been ongoing, and it is still ongoing. And so it is actually, the former director of FBI in America said it is so strong that if he said the conspiracy is so big that if people hear it, it will even shock them out of their wits. But it has been going on. But now we are seeing the fruit of it. Now, these are people who said these things from the 1960s, from the beginning of the 1960s. Although the conspiracy actually started a bit earlier than that. But the people who started noticing how it is taking effect and so on started speaking from the 1960s. So we are talking about so many years ago. And here we are right now, about 60 years later, and it's coming to light, all coming to light. Now, in a speech given by former American President John F. Kennedy in 1961 in April, he was speaking to the American Newspaper Publishers Association. So he was speaking to publishers and editors and newspaper people in the Astoria Hotel in New York City, 1961. Listen to part of what the president said that time. Now, this is the president of the United States at the time. Listen to part of what he said, and I'm going to run through it, so please pay attention. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and fair society. We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oath, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it. Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared in the traditional fashion. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger. And yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. Now, he's talking about a very big conspiracy, and perhaps the conspiracy that led to his death in 1963. I don't know, because he was opposed to it. A very big conspiracy. And listen to what he says. And now I'm going to summarize or paraphrase a bit of what he says in all of that. He says, secret societies and secret oath to do proceedings. And now you know that there's been a group of people, many of them are Freemasonry, who go at the highest level, who undertake certain oath to do certain things, and some of them are from a group of people called the Bilderbergs. Those are the people, and the Club of 300. Those are the people who basically think they own the world, because they are like the cabinet of the god of this world, the cabinet of the devil in this world. They are the ones who push all these things, push a lot of things economically, politically, socially, and they get instructions from their master, the devil, and they come and push these things through the media, and they are very relentless in their desire to push the agenda of the devil on the earth. This is why we are speaking about them. And he says we are opposed historically to secret societies and to secret oath and to secret proceedings. But these people do all their things in secret because they undergo secret oath to be there. And there's a lot of talk about how for anybody to be in those big positions that control the world, they actually have to go and take this oath, this Luciferian oath, so to speak. And now here, JF Kennedy is quite opposed to them. And he says our way of life is under attack. And he says these people do not declare war in the way that we are used to it. Their warfare and their sphere of influence is built on infiltration instead of invasion. So they are not going to invade you. They infiltrate you, and then from within, they come and take control of all systems, of all governments and things like that. And he says it's based on subversion, not election. So they don't actually even believe in democracy. It's based on intimidation instead of free choice. And they are guerrillas, by night, instead of armies by day. So it's not a real combat, open combat. It's kind of guerrilla style, but it seeks to take control of people's minds, people's thinking, and things like that. But I'm going to tell you why this is important for us to know here today. Because, that was in the 1960s. Now I'm bringing you very fast to where we are now and why we are here. So I'm moving from the 1960s and I'm taking you to a book which was written by a man called Jacques Attali. Jacques Attali. You know the way they spell it, and it's important for me to spell this for you so that you go and check this out. Jasquez, Attali, Attali, in 1981. And this man was a former advisor to French President Francois Mitterrand. And in his book, he spoke about his support for a pandemic-driven mass killing. The book is called Verbatim, and it was published in 1981. And he's talking about a pandemic-driven mass killing. And let me tell you some of the things that he wrote in the book. The future, and now I'm reading again. I warned you this is going to be a bit academic, so keep your mind alert. The future will be about finding a way to reduce the population. We start with the old, because as soon as they exceed 60 to 65 years, people live longer than they produce, and that costs society dearly. Then the weak, then the useless, that do not help society at all, because there will always be so many of them. And above all, and ultimately, the stupid. So these people believe in a principle called eugenics. Eugenics is the way you breed your cows in a way that you get the best breed, the way you would do with cows, or let's say animals, if you are in animal husbandry. So you say, I'm going to breed this animal with this one because I want to get the best yield, maybe for milk, for ultimate milk, maybe for the best beef, and so on. So they believe human beings are supposed to be treated like that. So get rid of the weak, get rid of the elderly, get rid of the stupid, okay? And I'm going to tell you how they are going to get rid of that. And he says, euthanasia, the word he used is euthanasia, is what we are going to use to target these groups. Now, let me explain to you what euthanasia means. Now I'm not quoting for him. I'll go back to quoting him later, but I have to explain to you what euthanasia is. Euthanasia is the practice of intentionally ending life to relieve pain and suffering. The British House of Lords Select Committee on Medical Ethics defines euthanasia as and I quote here, a deliberate intervention undertaken with the express intention of ending a life to relieve intractable suffering. Now, this initially it is supposed to be, let's say, which also has its moral issues, but it's supposed to be somebody who is, let's say, suffering from an incurable disease and is in extreme pain. And then somehow they take the decision to end his life. I still have very serious moral issues with that, because it's only God who has the authority to take, and we should not leave that into the hands of people. But anyhow, so it is supposed to be that. And from that point of view, some people said, yeah, maybe we support it. Somebody is in extreme suffering and there is no way out of the sickness for them. They are going to die. So keeping them alive just prolongs the pain. So they come up with that euthanasia and they say, call it suffering. But now they expanded it, not just for people who are terminally ill and in great pain. They expanded it also to people who are terminally poor and stupid. I mean, you're so poor, your life is miserable, so why don't we just help you and kill you? And that way we save the earth for the resources you could have consumed, and then we even save yourself. We save you from a lifetime of poverty. So now they're expanding this, where the suffering is not extreme physical suffering, as you would have if you're sick, but actually suffering for poverty. So they come to, let's say, poor communities and say, now none of you guys is ever going to be rich, is ever going to fly planes and so on. So why don't we just help you and kill you? And it's actually brought as if they are helping you. And this is really from the depth of hell. Absolutely from the depth of hell. This is the devil manifest. So this is what he's suggesting. So I'll read the former quote again. And now that you know what the word euthanasia means, we move ahead. The future will be about finding a way to reduce the population. We start with the old, because as soon as they exceed 65 years, people live longer than they produce, and that costs society dearly. Then the weak, then the useless that do not help society, because there will always be more of them. And above all, ultimately, the stupid. Euthanasia targeting these groups. Euthanasia will have to be an essential tool in our future societies, in all cases. Of course, we will not be able to execute people or build camps. We get rid of them by making them believe that it is for their own good. Overpopulation, and mostly of useless, is something that is too costly economically, socially too. It is much better when the human machine comes to an abrupt standstill than when it gradually deteriorates. Neither will we be able to test millions upon millions for their intelligence. You bet that. We will find or cause something, a pandemic targeting certain people, a real economic crisis or not, a virus affecting the old or the fat. It doesn't matter. The weak will succumb to it. The fearful and stupid will believe in it and seek treatment. We will have made sure that treatment is in place, treatment that will be the solution. The selection of idiots then takes care of itself. You go to the slaughter by yourself. End of quote. Jacques Attali, 1981.
COVID-19 cases in the entire country, just 2 states. Look, we need leadership from everyone. If some governors aren't willing to do the right thing to beat this pandemic, then they should allow businesses and universities who want to do the right thing to be able to do it. I say to these governors, please help. But if you aren't going to help, at least get out of the way.
Now, let me paraphrase to help you understand this. The euthanasia they are planning here, that is helping people, that is weak people, elderly and stupid, is to come up with a pandemic. He said that, I'm not saying it myself, will cause something like a pandemic which targets certain people. And the virus that was going to target old and fat people, weak people who are physically weak. It doesn't matter. So some people will succumb to the actual virus. And then the fearful and the stupid will believe in it, and then they will run to seek for treatment. But at the treatment is where there will be the solution. What is the solution? To kill them. So you go running away from a pandemic, which actually is really killing old and weak people, which they created, of course, the old and weak people. And then you go there when you're young and do not fall in that category because you've been taught to fear this pandemic. So you run there, and the solution they actually catch you at the point where you go for treatment. I'll read that quote again. We will find something or cause a pandemic targeting certain people. Now I'm quoting him again. We will cause a pandemic targeting certain people, a real economic crisis, or not, affecting the old or the fat. It doesn't matter. The weak will succumb to it. The fearful and stupid will believe in it and seek treatment. We will have made sure that the treatment is in place. Treatment that will be the solution. The solution is to kill. Then he says, the selection of idiots then takes care of itself. You go to the slaughter by yourself because you were, according to him, an idiot and you believed their lie. So the thing is, we cannot test. So we want to get rid of old, fat, weaklings and stupid people. Then he said, but we cannot go checking all the IQs of all the people involved. So we check your IQ. If your IQ is very small, then we kill you. No, we can't do that. But we come up with something which does not make sense. Like, really? And stupid people will go and believe some pandemic, it actually is killing old and elderly people. And some people run who are not in the danger group and run. And then he says, that's where I will find the stupid. Go and check. The book is called The Future of Life, verbatim. Jacques Attali, 1981. This man was not just somebody. He's a member of the Bilderberg Group. He's a Jewish Freemason, and he was an advisor to former French President Francois Mitterrand. And he was in support of a pandemic-driven mass killing. So go and check it out. If I come and tell you a scripture, I expect you to believe. But if I come and tell you there is this thing which was written in a book all these years ago, and say I don't believe, I'm not asking you to believe. I'm asking you to go and check it out. I've told you the names. I've told you the book. Just go and do your research. Don't believe on the basis of what I'm telling you. Go and do your own research if you're the kind of person who is inclined not to believe.
As a result of that vaccination, you are not thinking properly.
Right.
You are not thinking properly. That's why this one that is coming, no one is raising questions. It's because of the previous vaccine. You are not thinking properly. So the numbers are supposed to go down. According to me, if you are to ask me as a prophet, if you are to ask me as a messenger who saw the killing, the war that happened, the chaos, and I was able to interpret, I'm bringing this message to the kings. Hear me, what I saw is not good. For the first time on the earth, you will stand at any point and hear the word stick. To get to a point where you will not be able to bury your relatives. You will require bigger institutions to do mass burial. Argue all you want, but I hear from God. Insult all you want, but I'm coming from the future. I've watched Africa becoming a desert. And the remaining 1 billion, that those that would have not taken the so-called cure, will walk in and start this world all over again. Open your eyes. If the phone that I have in my pocket, the owner, if it blows, if it explodes and it kills me, my children can actually sue the manufacturer of that phone. If a phone that is external, somebody has to be held accountable. Here comes something, a consumable product. Where do I report? Who is willing to be held accountable for whatever happens after? No one. Why? 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 If they trust their product so much, that's the first verification. You don't verify by just verifying the product. The person behind the product is in a hiding place, waiting for you to take it first. And he has got files and files of papers that protects him. and then you go on to eat, you go on to consume, that is suicidal at its highest point. Some in that city, Johnstown, were not willing to take the poison. Some were forced because guns were involved. They were guns. They had guns. Another man who was given an explanation in that documentary, he said, if you arrive in that city, you'd think the people are protected because you'd see men holding guns. So you'd think the people are being protected by the gunmen. Then he narrated something. He said, but you notice the direction of the gun. It is pointing inside into the city, not outside. So people were forced.
But you see, some people have already chosen a certain path and they are so determined to pursue that path that even if you confront them with any amount of knowledge, they will not believe it. And now, those are the people perhaps whom they say will take care of themselves. These people call it, not me, not myself, these people called it the selection of idiots. Then takes care of itself. But I'll go ahead. So now, I want you to know that one of the biggest things that these people have been pushing for is the issue of depopulation. There have been so many figures that have been put around as what the ideal population of the world would be, and they have gone from different numbers. Now, some of the most outrageous ones have come from people like Ted Turner, the man who owned CNN, or at least who founded CNN, and Ted Turner, saying that and he's one of them, and one of these top people, this cabinet of these people who are in this conspiracy. And some people believe what comes out of their news channel as truth, but they are being driven in a certain direction. Anyhow, so some of them say that the ideal population is 300 million. Can you believe that? That is outrageous. 300 million. That is like the population of America should be occupying the whole world. And I'm talking about what they believe the population of the world should be. The most outrageous is 300 million that I've had, and that was from Ted Turner. And I'm going to read you the exact quote. Ted Turner, go and check it out. Go and check him out. But some of them have said something ranging from 500 million to 2 billion people to occupy the world. Remember, we are in excess of 7 billion. We are actually 7.5 or 7.6 billion in the world. But they are saying the maximum the world can hold is 2 billion. So what do we do to the rest of the 5.5 billion? Well, I'll tell you what they are planning by actually reading for you some of the most outrageous things that you're ever going to hear. Okay, here are the quotes. Here are some of the interesting quotes. These are actual quotes said by these people, verifiable. Go and check it out. A total population of 250 to 300 million people, a 95% decline from the present levels would be ideal. That is Ted Turner. Ted Turner, that is the man who started, I think they have since sold it, CNN and all that group of people. A population of 250 or 300 million people, that is a 95% decline from the present levels, would be ideal. Then another man called John Rappaport. I'm going to tell you who he is, but first listen to what he said. John Rappaport was, let me tell you who he is. He was an investigative journalist. He is an investigative journalist. He's a very old man in his 80s, and he's covered a lot of these people. And he has a podcast called No More Fake News, because he actually tells people what is behind the scenes, because he has dealt with some of these people, and he has been speaking very, very cutting edge things which actually show us how much the world is run on lies. Listen to what he said. The guy is called John, Jon, not with an H, Jon Rappaport. Go and read it. The medical cartel at the highest level is not out to help people. It is out to harm them, to weaken them, to kill them. At one point in my career, I had a long conversation with a man who occupied a high government position in an African nation. He told me that he was well aware of this. He told me that the World Health Organization is a front for these depopulation interests. The World Health Organization is a front for this depopulation interest. I know so many people who are going to say, what authority do you have? You believe what you believe. Go and take what they tell you to take. We shall see who stays standing at the end. If you don't want to believe, you don't have to. It's okay. You will be fine. Another guy called David Rockefeller. So many people have heard of it. The Rockefeller Foundation, the Rockefeller this and so on. Now this David Rockefeller is the old man. I believe you could have passed on recently. But he was in excess of, he was about 100 years or something like that. He says we're on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis for the whole world to be transformed. We need the right major crisis. That's David Rockefeller. Now, I'm telling you people whom you may know. If you don't know them, I will explain to you who they are. But these are not incognito people. These are people who hold high office, whose opinions are listened to by people in high places. Now, Prince Philip, the man who passed on recently, who was the husband of the Queen, of the current Queen of England. This is what he said. In the event that I'm reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation. Imagine that. The man is 99. He died. Even at the time he said this, he was really not well. He was perhaps on the verge of dying. But the guy goes on to say that if he believed in reincarnation, he would want to come back as a deadly virus so that he can contribute towards depopulating the world. Because in his mind, the overpopulation of the world is one of the biggest issues that we are facing. So he wants to do his bit. Anyway, he died. So I'm sure by now he realizes that there is no reincarnation. There is only a fire burning in hell. And so he will not come back as a virus. But anyway, the virus is here now. And that's what the man said. In the event that I'm reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation. Prince Philip, his words, not mine. Okay, now we move on. A gentleman called Eric Pianka. Now, let me first tell you what he said before I tell you who he is. But he's a very renowned scholar and believer in, in eugenics. But anyway, I'm going to tell you what he said. He said that war and famine would not do. Go and check him in now, Eric Pianka, Pianka. War and famine would not do. Instead, disease offered the most efficient and fastest way to kill the billions that must soon die if the population crisis is to be solved. AIDS is not an efficient killer because it is too slow. My favorite candidate for eliminating 90% of the world's population is airborne Ebola, in brackets, Ebola Reston, because it is both highly lethal and it kills in days instead of years. We've got airborne diseases with 90% mortality in humans, killing humans. Think about that. The bird flu is good too. For everyone who survives, you will have to bury 9. That's their target. I just want you to see it. We want to kill, and they are saying this in speeches, in books, openly. They are not hiding this. The only reason you didn't know about it is because you are not researching about it. But this is nothing hidden. I'll read that quote again. War and famine would not do. Instead, disease offered the most efficient and fastest way to kill the billions that must soon die if the population crisis is to be solved. AIDS is not an efficient killer because it is too slow. My favorite candidate for eliminating 90% of the world's population is airborne Ebola Reston, because it is both highly lethal and it kills in days instead of years. We've got airborne diseases with 90% mortality in humans, killing humans. Think about that. The bird flu is good too. For everyone who survives, he will have to bury 9. Yeah, so everyone who survives will have to bury 9. Anyhow, let's move on from that. Then Henry Kissinger, the man who was the former Secretary of State in the 1970s of America, but is now a very influential figure across the world in determining policy and so on, especially in America. Henry Kissinger. I'm sure you've heard of him. Go and check him out, Henry Kissinger. Depopulation, this is what he said. Depopulation must be the highest priority of foreign policy towards the third world, because the US economy will require large and increasing amounts of minerals from abroad, especially from less developed countries. Henry Kissinger. These are just quotes I'm giving. Okay, we move on. The one thing man fears is the unknown. Still Henry Kissinger. He says the one thing man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by a world government, a new world order. Think about that. Tell other people anything else in a scenario of peace, and tell them we are going to close this, close that. But if you can actually instill fear, I was seeing how these people were thinking about, can we do what China did and lock people down? Can we do that in the Western countries? Would people even allow it? Then they were scared if people would allow it. They thought that if they come up with it, people would be scared. But then they used the media to instill fear. Remember, for people 70 years and under, COVID only kills 0.5%. For people 70 years and under. And even those 0.5 are mostly from 50 to 70. Under that age, COVID is not anywhere close to the killer it has been made to be. But of course, when you turn on the media and everything you're hearing is COVID, COVID, COVID. So they instill fear, and they know that when people are faced with a scenario which is unknown, they react in certain ways, and they are willing to give up their liberties just to achieve certain things. So Henry Kissinger says the one thing man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by a world government or a new world order. Henry Kissinger. Now, then there's another man. Now, this one was even more explicit. Man, these guys, they're interesting. Because this guy is called Jacques Cousteau. Okay? A world-renowned environmentalist. Received the World Ecology Award in 1992 from the International Center for Tropical Ecology at St. Louis. In Missouri. Now, this gentleman, Jacques Cousteau, died in 1997, I believe, thereabout. But he was such an influential person in all this ecology and what, and he started so many things to do with marine, but he really was a believer in the depopulation agenda. Very strong believer in this heavy depopulation agenda. And now now that you kind of know who he is, I'm going to tell you what he said. Listen to what he said. In order to stabilize world population, we must eliminate 350,000 people per day. I say it again. Jacques Cousteau. In order to stabilize world population, we must eliminate 350,000 people per day. These are people who foment, serious policy. Then there's another one called Thomas Ferguson. Go and look for this one. Go and look for Thomas Ferguson and some of the things he said. Thomas Ferguson is the research director at the Institute of the New Economic Thinking. New Economic Thinking. Research director at the Institute of New Economic Thinking. And he is a professor emeritus at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and a senior fellow at the Better Markets. He received his PhD from Princeton University and taught formerly at MIT and the University of Texas in Austin. I mean, great credentials. These are the people who are teaching people in university and, changing the way people, university people think. But listen to what he says. Thomas Ferguson, quote, "There is a single theme behind all our work. We must reduce population levels. Either governments do it our way through nice, clean methods, or they will get the kinds of mess that we have in El Salvador or in Iran or in Beirut. Population is a political problem. Once population is out of control, it requires authoritarian government, even fascism, to reduce it." Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like what we have right now, where authoritarianism at the highest level, even in countries which were previously thought to be democratic, real authoritarianism? I've been seeing videos of people who are being arrested in places to be vaccinated, cloaked, things like that. Anyhow, let me move on. That is Thomas Ferguson, and these are the people who are making decisions. Now listen to this one. This one, you know him, Mikhail Gorbachev, the former leader of the Soviet Union, the man who surrendered the Soviet Union and ran into exile in America. Mikhail Gorbachev. Anybody who is my age has heard of Mikhail Gorbachev. If you are not, if you're younger, go and check him out. Check who he is. He was the leader of the Soviet Union until it collapsed. 1989. Listen to what he said. "We must speak more clearly about sexuality, about contraception, about abortion, about values that control population, because the ecological crisis, in short, is the population crisis. Cut the population by 90%, and there aren't enough people left to do a great deal of ecological damage." Interesting. They start with sexuality. So there are a lot of things about population. Remember, they say everything we do. So even all the pushing of homosexuality and what, of course, they know homosexuals will not give birth to children. And then they move to contraception. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it for people who want to plan their families and so on, but there's a way in which it was aggressively pushed at some stage. Then they move to abortion, wanton abortions, just abortion, but it's all about population control. But then eventually it says that is no longer enough because that can only stop people from being produced. But we already have more people alive as it is than we ever want. So what do we do to those who have survived all those methods and have come onto earth? What do we do with them? So he says we have a serious problem. So cut the population of the world by 90% and there aren't enough people left to do a great deal of ecological damage. Interesting. 90%. That would be killing almost 6 billion, something like that. How do you kill 6 billion people? These people are crazy. But anyhow, they said these things. Okay, this guy is called Larry McDonald, and he's not one of them. He's one of those who was critiquing them. And he says the drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government combining super capitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I am convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent. I totally agree with that. I'll read it again. Larry McDonald. You can go and check him out too. Larry McDonald. The drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government combining super capitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I am convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent. That is super stuff. Okay, that was Larry McDonald's. And we'll go on. I'm just giving you a few more here, then we'll... I'm just trying to give you a picture of... This is not one or two or three people saying these things. There are so many influential people across the world who are making decisions and making policy that are even affecting our governments, even governments as ours here in this country, whose purpose is to reduce the population massively, not just reduce it by what percent, massively. Barbara Marx Hubbard. Who is she? Barbara Marx Hubbard. I'll just give you a brief on her. Barbara Marx Hubbard, Hubbard, has been called the voice of conscious evolution of our time. Conscious evolution of our time. So, evolution, they start by telling us, let me just tell you a bit about what conscious evolution could mean here. They start by telling us that, species just evolved by themselves. They started as this, then they evolved, and then they turned out into something else. And that happened unconsciously. That was what they teach. But now they're saying we can take control of the evolution process by consciously making it happen. So if human beings evolved from monkeys, or from apes, or whatever, according to Charles Darwin and his rubbish that, the devil gave him in some island there in Australia called Darwin, straight down from the devil, by the way, straight down from the devil. And it's going to populate hell. That's stuff where you go to schools and they teach evolution and what, and they're just making you a candidate for hell. And the hell and the apostle for it was that guy called Charles Darwin. Anyhow, so the evolution, what they teach, which apparently in their mind eliminates the creation that is taught by the Bible. Anyhow, so that time it comes, we evolve, and so done over years and years, and it's natural. But at this stage now, we are no longer letting it happen naturally. We are forcing the evolution to the next stage. So Barbara Marx Hubbard has been called the voice of conscious evolution. That's what conscious evolution means. That means taking control of the evolution process. Okay. And she's also been called the mother of invention. She was described as the voice of conscious evolution in a book called The Mother of Invention. She's a world-renowned visionary futurist, evolutionary educator, an inspiring speaker. She's also the author of 6 acclaimed books that communicate the new world view of conscious evolution. Wow. She's the co-founder and chairman of the Foundation of Conscious Evolution. And additionally co-founded, you get the point, You understand. Okay. Additionally, co-founded many progressive organizations, including the Association for Global New Thought, global new thought, changing your thinking, renewing your thinking to think in a certain way, conscious evolution, as well as the World Future Society, where the world is turned into these are the things these people believe. You remember John F. Kennedy talking about secret societies. Now the idea is to conscript everybody. So, and how do they do that? By changing the way you think. Changing the way you think about the Bible, the way you think about in your faith, and so on. And ultimately, you get into their global new thought, and then the World Future Society. And then you are admitted into this new world order as a member and with all rights in this new world order. How are you going to be admitted? I'll tell you how very shortly. Now I have to tell you, that is Barbara Marx Hubbard. And this is what she said. 1/4 of humanity must be eliminated from the social body. We are in charge of God's selection process for planet Earth. He selects, we destroy. We are the riders of the pale horse, death. She even quotes the book of Revelation. Can you imagine these people? And they claim not to believe in God, but they are quoting the book of Revelation, and they say God selects and we destroy. So God decides, okay, we came up with abortion, homosexuality, lesbianism, just to make sure people are not born. But eventually people are born and they come on this earth. But now what do we do with them? We have to still kill them. So she says, remember the fourth horse? Let me even read it for you here so that I'm reading from Revelation chapter 6 verse 7. It says, when you opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, come and see. So I behold, and a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and heads followed with him. And power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Now it says 1/4 of the earth will be killed. Now listen to what this was. She actually quotes the scripture. It says 1/4 of humanity must be eliminated from the social body. We are in charge of God's selection process for planet Earth. He selects, that is, God selects, we destroy. We are the riders of the pale horse, death. Oh, very gladly. And it's just interesting, isn't it, that all this is said openly. No hiding. Nothing to hide. It's out there. And these people are actually even quoting the Bible, some of them, in doing this. Now, so how are people going to be admitted in this society that she's talking about? Remember what I told the Association for Global New Thought, or what was called the World Future Society. How are people going to be admitted into this new world order? I'll tell you how. I told you I'll tell you shortly. Now I'm going to tell you. But first, let me tell you that there's this gentleman called David Spangler, born in 1945, an American spiritual philosopher and self-described practical mystic. He helped to transform the Findhorn Foundation in northern Scotland into a center for residential spiritual education, and was a friend of William Ewing Thomson. Spangler is considered one of the founding figures of the modern New Age movement. So if anybody knows how people would enter the New Age movement or the New World Order, I think the right person to speak to would be David Spangler. He should know, because he's considered one of the founding figures of it. And now we don't even have to find him to speak to him. He told us already, and I'm going to tell you what he said. Now I'm quoting. No one will enter the New World Order unless he or she will make a pledge to worship Lucifer. No one will enter the New Age unless he will take a Luciferian initiation. I'll say that again. No one will enter the New World Order unless he or she will make a pledge to worship Lucifer. No one will enter the New Age unless he will take a Luciferian initiation. Now, it is just as simple as that. Now they'll come and say, we are giving you new thought, get rid of your old thought, which is outdated, and so on, and we are creating a new world, this kind of society and what, but they are actually taking you right into the hands of the devil, and you are going to end up worshiping the devil. And now people start by refusing to worship the Lord, and they claim that they are atheists. But atheism is just a journey towards Luciferian worship. I can promise you that. Atheism is just a journey towards Luciferian worship. And it was said by a certain man called Albert Pike in a book which was written in 1890. And the man spoke about how we are going to use atheism to, first of all, destroy Christianity. But when we've succeeded in destroying Christianity using atheism, then we shall now introduce a new version of all of this, where now people who are said to be atheists are now introduced into Luciferian worship. And it is just a trick of the devil. Taking you basically, okay, permit me to use this word, he's taking you process by process. Oh wow, let me laugh about that. This is the devil taking you process by process. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in what? I believe in what? I believe in science. Science is taking you straight into the palms of the devil. I'm telling you that. So now you're going to enter that future society of, you know what, but you end up worshiping the devil. Okay, so I'm just going to read for you a few more quotes here. Now this one is even more extreme. I thought the most extreme numbers mentioned was 300 million. This man called David Foreman is even talking about 100 million. Can you imagine? Where from 7.56 billion, they want to reduce their population to 100 million. These are just jokers. They're absolute jokers. If the Lord was not in control, the things that would happen in this world, I mean, if the church wasn't here and if the Lord wasn't in the church, man, the things that these people are capable of doing. Now, this guy called David Foreman says, my 3 main goals would be to reduce human population to about 100 million worldwide, destroy the industrial infrastructure, and see wilderness with its full complement of species returning throughout the world. In other words, all these species which have died because of human beings, we want to see them back. So let's just get rid of the human beings and then they come back. Okay. Just a few more left because we're even running out of time. This is a judge who was one of the members of the Supreme Court in America, who died recently. She's called Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is what she said, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She died recently and made news just before, when Trump was still president. She said, frankly, I had thought that at the time Roe was decided, there was concern about population growth, and particularly growth in populations that we don't want to have many of. That would be populations like you people, black people. I mean, there are some populations we can tolerate, but there are those we don't want to have many of because, we don't want to have many. So anyhow, this is the second last. Whatever the price of the Chinese Revolution, it was obviously succeeded not only in producing more efficient and dedicated administration, but also in fostering high morale and community of purpose. The social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is one of the most important and successful in history. That is according to David Rockefeller. Now, if you know what the Chinese Revolution was about, murder, death, bringing everybody into subjection under the iron fist of the Chinese Communist Party. It was murder on massive scale. And here is David Rockefeller saying that social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is one of the most important and successful in human history. My God, this is where we are heading. And remember, I told you this, that the scripture says the dragon gave them his authority. The dragon is symbolic, of course, of the devil, but also of China. Now, everything that they are trying to implement in the world, remember when they saw China locking people down, they said we can also do it. And then they went ahead and did it. So what they're actually trying to do is to lock people down and basically bring people into subjection. I told you about the Chinese social contract where people are judged and are given freedoms based on how much basically they worship the leader of the Chinese Revolution and so on. So this is where we are heading. And that quote was praising the Chinese Communist Revolution was actually made by David Rockefeller. And you'd think these are people who would say, no, that's authoritarianism. What? No, they actually want it. They want authoritarianism when they are the ones who are in authority. Okay, Henry Kissinger, I told you, former Secretary of State of America, U.S. policy toward the third world should be one of depopulation. Okay. Thomas Ferguson, I told you about him again. There is a single theme behind all our work. We must reduce population levels. Okay. Now, the question is, they want to reduce population levels. How are they going to do it? That's the big question. The big question. How are they going to reduce population levels? I'm going to tell you the final quote from a man you all know about. Billionaire Bill Gates. And this one, I actually heard him say it. He did not write it in a book. He said it, and I heard the video. And when he was quoting, I watched the video properly when he was saying these things, and I was in shock. I said, did I hear right? Because I was listening in, I said, did I hear right? And he actually said this, I can promise you my right hand. He said this. So because I told somebody in the news, he said, I don't believe that. I said, I'm not asking you to believe, I'm asking you to go and research. Go and check. Why do you close your minds? I mean, people claim to be scientists, but when certain things come, they close their minds. Now, me, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and I'm a faith person. But my mind is, I've not closed my mind. I still have a mind to think, because God has given us a sound mind. And now that's the thing. We have to understand that even having the sound mind to learn some of these things is actually even a gift from God. That's what 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 says. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. A sound mind listens to something, analyzes it properly, and says, do I really want to be a part of this? Do I really want to take part in this? Am I just following a bandwagon? And all these other things. So everything has to come. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So when I tell you some of these things, I intend for you to use your God-given sound mind to go and check them out and see if they're actually true. Okay, Bill Gates, this is what he said. Not too long ago, by the way. This must have been around 2010, 2012, around that period. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed to about 9 billion. If we do a really great job on vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 to 15%. I'll say that again. The world today has a population of 6.8 billion people. It's headed up to about 9 billion. If we do a really good job on vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 to 15%. So if we do a good job with the vaccines, we could succeed in lowering the population of the world by 10 to 15%. If we do a good job on vaccines. And guess who is making these vaccines which we are fronting and distributing and what? We have to get vaccine. Guess who is making them? Bill Gates. Bill Gates. And he said this, go and check it out. Don't give me your rubbish of you don't believe. I am not teaching you scripture. I am teaching you something which was said. So it was either said or it wasn't said. It's not a question of whether you believe or not. If I tell you that Jesus is the Son of God, you have the right to say I don't believe it. But if I tell you that Kableta said Bill Gates said this, then you just go and check it out. So it's either true or it's not true. He either said it or he didn't say it. So go and check if he did not say it. Now, all these vaccines which people are pushing across, sometimes we have to come out and say things which are not popular because we want to save the lives of people. Now, somebody who is making vaccines which are patented 060606 is saying that if we do a good job with vaccines, we could lower the population of the world to by about 10 to 15%. I'm going to read the quote one last time as he said it. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. If we do a really great job on vaccines, on healthcare, and reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 to 15%. He went on to give a whole speech, which I listened to, by the way, about how to manage the problem of overpopulation in the world. This quote is just taken out of a whole speech that he gave, a speech that I listened to. So that, and this is the man making these vaccines. So I'm going to tell you here today. Now, if you don't like me, that's okay. I'm not, in a popularity contest. I'm here to save people's lives. I, Joseph Kableta, is not going to get vaccinated for COVID. I am not going to. And I wouldn't advise anybody. I would not advise anybody. Having known all these things, all my people whom I love, I am telling them, if you can avoid it, avoid it. Thankfully, COVID is a sickness which has a very low mortality. A very, very low mortality. That is the reality. A mortality of about 0.5%. Okay? That is 1 in every 200 people for people who are 70 and below. And for people who are 50 and below, it even reduces to about 1 in 1,000 people. For people who are below 50, about 1 in 1,000 people. So the younger you are, the less likely. Now, and especially, unless of course there are other conditions and so on. So I want to tell you that there are so many things that have been fronted to us here that people have not researched on and are just believing because they don't want to go and do research. Go and do your own research. Today I am telling you that these people believe that if you have a smaller population, it's easier to create a one world government. And the people they want to eliminate are those who they would say even like believers and things like that, so that they have one family, it's one society of people who are Luciferians, people who worship the devil, and so on. So they are using these things, and they're even in some cases even using pastors and so on to go and push for things which in their planning are very evil, very, very evil. Now, I've just given you a few of the things which I said. If you have phones, you have internet, I presume, go and check these things out. Go and find out if I'm telling truth or lies. Okay? If I'm telling lies, don't believe me. But these things were said. So I want for you to understand that there was a thinking among people a long time ago that, there are these people who like us, they are giving us this, they are donating. It was interesting the other day to see that Norway has completely banned AstraZeneca vaccines in their country. Completely banned them, removed them off the list of vaccines that are being given. And then a short while later, Norway donates AstraZeneca vaccines to Uganda. And guess what? We received the vaccines. So, and I even had the President of America, Joe Biden, saying that some vaccines which were refused by their Food and Drug Authority, FDA, are being sent to other countries. Guess countries like what? Like Uganda. So for them, they said, no, we can't give these vaccines to our people. But we shall give them to Uganda. And guess what? They will be received here by our president, and he will force young children to go and receive those vaccines. Now, I am not against vaccination. I was vaccinated as a child, and my children have been vaccinated as well. But when it comes to this COVID vaccine, nara. Because first of all, it is a trial vaccine under emergency approval. It is under emergency approval. That means they did not have enough time to scrutinize it, so they just worked around something and said, let's see how this works. So, and things which are under emergency approval are oftentimes called back. It's like being on probation. It's like a vaccine on probation. When somebody is on probation, you are not permanent and pensionable in the job. So they can withdraw your appointment letter at any time until you're confirmed. So the COVID vaccine is on probation, so to speak. It's under emergency approval. And all the people who go and get it have to sign a form which takes away responsibility for any possible side effects away from the government or anybody else who forced you to get that vaccine. So governments are forcing people to get vaccines, and the people are signing away that they cannot sue the government if they get extreme side effects. And then people are being silent about the side effects, and they are extreme. There are so many side effects, and so many people are having problems, but they are being silenced, and it's being handled very quietly there, and so on. So I want you to understand that when we come up and speak these things, it is to save people's lives. It is to educate people on certain things. Those who want to listen will listen. Those who don't want to listen, they will be fine. And so shall we all. Okay? So some people say you are politicizing COVID. No, I'm not the one who is politicizing COVID. Goodness gracious me, I'm not. It was already politicized long time ago. We have not had a scenario where a virus with such a very low mortality rate causes all of society to go down. It has not happened before. And I'm not even going to talk about this before, but I wanted you to tell you that these people have plans which are very sinister and very evil. But we have a responsibility to protect ourselves and those people whom we love.